All right, boys and girls, I'm going to walk you guys through how to do the combinations, the great combination sheet. That is the compounds sheet in Canvas. When you go into Canvas and you go into modules, I'm just going to click in here right now. Click in there, and then you click on where it says modules, and it's always the furthest one down in our current module. So this one says elements and reading the table. All right, get into this little page here. And the compound sheet, I do have just the answer key down here right now, and I'll show you, I'll link the other one in here shortly, but really you just need to use this periodic table. Let me just kind of make this a little bit bigger here so you can see these sections. The sheet that I'm talking about looks like this one called Great Combinations. And you can see right here, the first one that we're going to do is look at this compound using these two elements. My one takeaway that I'd like you guys to know in the next week or so before the test is that the difference between an element and a compound, meaning that an element is just one thing. So on this one I see hydrogen is one element and chlorine is one element. Okay, each of them is a pure thing. So if I were to look at all of the atoms inside of there, it's all chlorine or all hydrogen, or it's pure. There's nothing else mixed in there. When you have a chemical bond that happens between two elements, like this one, you can see the little ones as they join hands. There's a chemical bond that happens, and it becomes something new, which would be called a compound. Okay, and we're going to take a look through this sheet at some different types of compounds. So you can see the two elements here are H, which is hydrogen, and Cl, which is chlorine. And we're going to go back to our periodic table. I'm going to go up to the top here where it says compounds, and you'll notice that this little part of the periodic table will disappear, and it becomes drag the elements inside to create compounds. Okay, so what I'm going to have you notice then too is I have my screen kind of as wide as I can get it here. You'll notice that over here these are going to change a little bit. So when I drag hydrogen, because it was H and Cl, you'll notice that all these changed on this side. And you can see possibly the chemical formulas over here. This is every compound that exists that has the element hydrogen, because that's what we had picked over here. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over on this side of the table to chlorine, and I'm going to drag and drop chlorine, and you'll notice some things changed over on this side too. And there you have it. We have a couple options here for that sheet, so I can go back to my worksheet that I had here, and on the line right here is where I can write the chemical formula, which you see that right here, H, and then Cl is what I can write right on the line right here. Now in this space to the right of there is where I'm going to write down the compound name. So you can see two different options here is a compound names, and I'll just write both of these things down just to the right of that number, and I should be done with number 1 then. Okay, any of these things in blue, you can click them because they're links. So if I want to know about hydrochloric acid, I can click the link and I could read some things about it. So you can look down there, kind of a cool fact here. When you go to the bottom part, hydrochloric acid is its presence in living things. Gastric acid, one of the main secretions in the stomach, mainly consists of hydrochloric acid. Okay, so your stomach acid would be an example, a real world example of hydrochloric acid. Okay, so I'm going to go back to here again. So I'm going to clear that out. I'm going to get rid of the chlorine and the hydrogen, and I'm going to go back to my compound sheet and look down at the next one. So I see H, and O. So I have a hydrogen, and an oxygen. Go back to my table, and I'm going to crop this just a little bit here again so you can see it. So an H, and drag a H, and drag a, and it didn't let me. What this wants is it only wants to know which elements you're using. So it doesn't want me to drag my H and my H and an H over here. It just wants to know I'm working with a hydrogen and I'm working with an oxygen. And you may notice over here then, it shows me what the H, and the O. So when I go back to that worksheet, there's two H's and an O. And on that one, if you look down at the two H's and the O, this one has right here, the little subscript number would be 2 hydrogens. That's what this stands for. And then the O by itself shows that I just have one of those. Okay, and that's what I see when I go over to this one. I have 2 H's and 1 O, which means that I just have one molecule of water right there. So 2 H's and an O. So I can go back to my sheet and I can write the chemical formula right here, H2O. And then in the space next to the 2, I can write down water for my compound name. You don't need to write these other things, steam, ice, water, because those are just other states. The solid, the liquid, and the gas version of those then too. So really you just kind of keep going through that sheet. And you kind of go back and you close out. You look back at your sheet and see what's next and you add those elements in there. Again, my main takeaway on this one is that you guys get some practice in interacting with the periodic table. You can practice with some compounds, and really so you know the difference then between what is an element and what are compounds. That would be our main takeaway on this one. So, all right, let me know if you guys have any questions.